Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Free Arkansas podcast. My name is Misty Hale, and I know you guys are used to seeing Andy McNeill sitting here, but I am helping intro this very special episode of Free Arkansas. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Andy interviewed all four of the candidates who are running for the Republican primary for the Arkansas House of Representatives District 52 seat. Now, that seat is currently held by Marcus Richmond, but he has announced that he's going to retire, and so he's not seeking re-election. So we have four candidates that have announced they're going to run for that seat. And there may be more that join the race later, but we were very excited and thrilled that all four of those candidates spoke to us. And we have compiled a very special episode today that has all of the highlights of those four conversations. But I would encourage you to go ahead and listen to the full episodes with each candidate that's hosted by Andy. All of those episodes run around 45 minutes each, and they really let you know a lot about these candidates' personalities, their objectives, the things that they stand for. So if you are in District 52, it'll really help you decide which candidate you gravitate more toward as well. And if in the future, if any Democrats announce that they're going to run for that seat, we'd be happy to profile them as well. So just a few quick notes about that District 52 seat. So that seat covers Scott, Sebastian, and Yell counties. So it's kind of in the River Valley area, but it's a very large district, covers a lot of ground. And just a little bit about the filing periods. So candidates can begin filing for the partisan primary on November 3rd. Filing ends, I believe, on November 11th, and then voters will have a chance to vote in those primaries on March 3rd of next year, with the general election being November 3rd of 2026 for that seat. So I hope you enjoyed these interviews. Again, these are just the highlights from those four interviews. I encourage you to listen to the whole thing. We think you'll get a lot out of it. So without further ado, let me introduce you to your four candidates for that race. In alphabetical order, they are Mike Jones, who you may recall has run for this seat before, Crystal Malloy, Brent Montgomery, and Kristain Thompson. So let's begin.
My name's Mike Jones. I'm running for state rep at District 52. I'm a farmer, rancher. I'm not a lawyer or politician. And there's things that I want to work on to make rural Arkansas and rural District 52 a lot better than it is now, whether it be economic development, for our funding our senior citizen centers, funding of our fire department, rural fire departments. I know there's guys that go down there and that they're in it to try and make a living. For me and myself, that's what I tell everybody. It's like, look, I've already got my living made. I don't really have to do this. I want to go make a difference on my own and work with other guys and make things better for my kids and my grandkids.
I'm Crystal Malloy, and I am on city council right now. I live in Dardanelle. I have a business out in the county. I have 3 kiddos. My oldest just graduated here. The other 2 are still in school. And so I am all in on this district. I have laid everything on the line, and I want to see the best for us. I'm a problem solver. I want to work hard. I want to help bring jobs here. That's one of my biggest things. I am a small business owner, and I know how important it is to try and get business here and to bring business here, and I'm actively doing it every day. And I want to take that to Little Rock and try and strengthen our district as much as we can, to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, not a government handout. My husband, so we've been married 20 years, and he's a builder, and he built me a house here in downtown Dardanelle. We were told by loving people, they said, if you build that over the bridge in Russellville, it'll be worth a lot more money. And I said, no, if we don't do it, who will? Who will build here? Who will invest here? We have to set the example, and we have to do that. And so I am all in. I'm all in for our district, and I really want to see the best. And I want to fight for people. And the other thing is I think that ultimately in this job, it is about communicating and building relationships and solving problems. And that means that you need to go down and you need to be able to look people in the eye and build those good relationships, respect people, collaborate, so that when opportunities come, we can be first in line. And I think that's one of my strengths. One of my strengths is connecting with people and trying to, build relationships.
I serve in several aspects. I'm on the quorum court, my second term on the quorum court here. I'm on the fair board, the board of directors at our church, Pee Wee basketball committee. I've been a firefighter for 20 years, but I never intended on running for state representative. Marcus Richmond is retiring, and Mary Bentley, which is the other representative out of Yale County, called me and asked me to run for this position when she knew that Marcus was retiring. We prayed about it as a family for a month, thought about it for a month. My family encouraged me to do it. The judge here encouraged me to do it. Mary Bentley encouraged me. But more than anything, I feel like it's a calling. I really feel like I'm called to serve because I came up with 1,000 reasons on why not to do this. And for some reason, everything just kept dragging me back to, hey, this is what you need to do. This is a way you can serve from a bigger platform. And so that's what I'm doing. And, I am tied in with the people of this community. I've got a business with 30 employees. I understand, making a $30,000 a week payroll, it's not easy. So I understand that. I've got a cattle farm. I've got about 35 head of cattle here. So I understand our ag industry. And I just really think I got a deep understanding for the people of this district. And I love this district. I got a lot of family roots in Scott County. And it's just a way for me to serve this district that's been so good to me.
The biggest thing is that, I'm not running with an agenda. At the end of the day, I want to go down there and I want to be everybody's voice. I want people to know me. I want you to be used to seeing me. I want to use social media as a tool to be able to educate all of my voters and all my constituents in the district. That's something that's really important to me. I don't want people voting for me just because my wife or my father-in-law or my mama or anything like that. I want you to vote for me because you believe in what I want to do for y'all. And at the end of the day, I don't mind not always going with everybody else when it comes to a point that it's not going to be good for us in our district.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the vote has my name and everything by it, but it's not my vote. I got 30,000 bosses over here that, I have to come back and look in the eyes and say, hey, I'm down there doing the right things for y'all. I feel like I was called to do this. I don't feel like I didn't wake up one day and was like, hey, I'm going to go and, run for state representative. I've really well thought this out and, I'm excited for what can come from this just because I feel like we're at a really vital part. And I feel like my generation is the generation that has to start stepping up and coming into government and being able to bring a new perspective because it's really hard for a bunch of us to live. And a bunch of these older voters and things that I see, they all tell me the same thing. They're like, we're just happy to see somebody that's young that wants to go down there and do the right thing. And I let everybody see my heart. Like, what you see is what you get with me. Like, there's not going to be anything that surprises you. That's what I tell everybody. The same person I am here is going to be the same person that I am down there.
Views on conflict and collaboration.
How do you collaborate to find solutions?
I do think it's one of my superpowers. I'm on city council right now in Dardanelle. And, when you look at the city level, most of the things are not even remotely partisan. But I think one of the biggest things that you can do to collaborate with people is I think you have to really like people. And what I mean by that is I heard a podcaster one time say that they did a study to see who the most popular people were. And they found that the most popular kids were the kids who liked the most people. I think that way. I like people and I can usually find something that I can connect with that person. Like we've got something somewhere where I can see you as a human, as a person, and I can talk about that subject with you and we can connect. And so I think that first and foremost, the way you collaborate with people is that you look at them as people and you respect them and you find something to like about them. You cannot go into life thinking, oh, these people are my enemies. You can't go into Little Rock and say, these people are my enemies and this is my team and we're going to fight it out. Because then who loses? The state loses, your district loses,
Yeah.
I think you need to find how you can get along with people, how you can like them, but then also being true to your own compass, your own legislative compass. But I think you can do it with grace.
How do you resolve those conflicts?
Yeah. So it's, sometimes it's resolved through tough conversations, obviously, but those conversations have to be had. There's a couple instances when me being on the quorum court here in Yale County that I've had to go against the grain. But at the end of the day, you got to go by what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong and how you feel because you got a conscience to deal with at the end of the day. And I've always believed in standing on principles that matter matter the most. So I've had to do that. I have to do that in business a lot of times with my employees. I've already been 2 or 3 times, man. I've already been bashed, I guess you could say, on Facebook or something about bringing my faith into politics. And people are saying you need to keep politics out of church and church out of politics. But I couldn't disagree with that more. In fact, I believe that is one of the reasons our country is in the shape it's in today, is because the two have become too far separated. And just to throw a little scripture in here, Proverbs 29:2 tells us that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people mourn. So that tells me from the very beginning of time that God intended righteous people to be leaders, and that includes politics. So I'll always stand firm on that, and that is going against the grain, as you talked about. But as far as how to see people with a difference of opinion, how to work that stuff out, that's honestly one of my favorite things to do. I love hearing from people that's got difference in opinions, because I've always believed that until you truly put yourself in someone else's shoes, you'll never fully understand their perspective on things and why they see things that way. So a lot of times you just have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes to get their perspective. And the only way you can do that is by sitting down and having a conversation with them. And more times than not, there's room for common ground, but without having that conversation, you'll never get there. And that's one reason I always respected Charlie Kirk. Like I spoke about earlier, he wasn't afraid to spark those tough conversations that got people thinking and talking.
But one thing that I always do is I have these relationships with people in these certain areas that I want to talk to, that I can trust. Building relationships is something that is very important to me, and something that if I had to bet my life on, you can put a random person in here and I can build a relationship with them, because I genuinely care about why you feel and how you feel about certain things. And so I like to collaborate with people. I want to hear, even if you were totally different than me, I want to hear why you feel the way that you do, because I think that that's important, and that's what we need to do. So if there's a farm thing that we need to talk about, you go to Farm Bureau, you go to your farmers and people that are actually watching this, who these things are going to affect, and you ask them how they think about it. You'll never be able, the way that I've kind of found out, especially going around, I'm not going to be able to know all 1,000 of those bills. But here's the thing, I'm going to know the people, and some of the other legislators. Like, I'm going to call some of them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or how did you come to this? Explain this bill to me a little bit more. But also you find your groups of people, the ones who really care in your districts about the legislation and who it's going to affect and how it's going to affect them, and let them explain it to you, but not just you have to get a few different views on it. You can't just go, well, this is my one person that I go to for this. Well, yes, I appreciate that, but let's talk to these 2 to 3 other groups that also have a stake in this too, and hear what they all have to say. And then you make an informed decision that's going to be the best for everybody. At the end of the day, we're down there to do the best for the most. And that's one thing that I truly believe in.
Well, we're so divided, Andy, today. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or what you are. So I'll give you a perfect example. I was door-to-door campaigning yesterday, and I ran across a gentleman that knows me, has known me a long time. I walked up, knocked on his door. I didn't really realize it was his home. I opened the door. We spoke, and I gave him my handbill, and he said, well, I'm not voting Republican. And I said, wait. I said, you know me. You know how I was raised. You know what I stand for. And we have to work together as a group of people to come up with solutions to fix the problems. And I said, you're saying you're not going to vote for Republican. Well, what about my character? You know my character. So before it was all over with, he said, well, I think I can vote for you now. And so that's a situation where you have to explain, hey, I'm going to do what's best for constituents in a District 52, not what's, party lines or whatever it may be, but what's best for our constituents.
Candidates' views on government size and privacy.
Do you have a view on privacy?
I think you can't walk down the street without your picture being taken by the government or by somebody's iPhone or ring phone cameras. I don't know how many houses that I door knock that had Ring cameras. So privacy is going to be a big thing. Can you have privacy in your own home? If you're careful, it's a possibility you don't.
I I think when privacy goes away, liberty goes away. And so the trade-off of that, like you talk about truth and vaccines and medicine. So I think the trade-off of that is that we can value science and knowledge and all these things, but we need to value freedom more. You know, I'm a small government girl. I'm a limited government girl. I want government to be smaller. I wish it didn't have its hand in so many places, but we are where we're at, right? So we got to start with where we're at, and you got to work with what you have to solve the problems of today and hopefully slowly move towards a better tomorrow.
Privacy is a fundamental right that we have as Americans. They're doing that stuff overseas, and we shouldn't deal with that in America. As a conservative, I believe in less government, obviously, and more power to the people. Our founding fathers understood that, the Fourth Amendment. That protects Americans from unwarranted surveillance, data collection, government intrusions. The Fourth Amendment protects us from all that, and so there's no need to redo the Constitution. But a government big enough to track everything that you do is a government that's big enough to control everything that you do. But to me, true freedom means that you have the right to live life without the government watching over your shoulder. And so I'm 100% for privacy, less government. Get that junk out of here. We're a knee-jerk reaction society, and the government always wants to fix everything, and sometimes the government just needs to stay out of the way.
I think that the government's not supposed to be in your home. I don't think they need to be watching you. I think they need to stay out your finances, all of those different types of things. Like, once again, it's one of those principles that we were founded on for a reason. And, are there times like if you search something on the internet or something that if you get pinged for something like that, that's one thing. But like when it comes to, mom and pop down the road, that's minding their own business and stuff and living their life how they're supposed to, you don't need to be in their business. And that's a bunch of people's, like where we live. That's why we love living where we live, because everybody minds their own business. We all go to work. We all have these things. Everybody's just trying to survive at the end of the day.
Economic development in District 52.
If you want to know what I think the biggest issue is that we're facing District 52 is economic development. I think that's a huge issue here, and there's not enough jobs here. And in all honesty, if my kids and my grandkids and your grandkids want to live here and they want to raise a family here, they should have the opportunity to do that. They shouldn't have to move off to get a good education. They shouldn't have to move off to get a good paying job. They should be able to stay here and support their kids here. So economic development's a lot of that. And there's a lot of things that branch off of that, roads, transportation, budgeting, everything else, and it's not just a District 52 issue like you spoke about earlier. It's an Arkansas issue. But in my district, it's cows, chickens, and trees. I mean, almost everybody here is touched by that industry somehow or another. Chicken growers, chicken plants, loggers, logging mills, cattle farms, stuff like that. So we got to protect those industries for sure, and then try to create other jobs.
When I started this, it was about what I could do for agriculture. But as I visited with constituents and saw and really realized what was going on at the Capitol and with our districts and with different parts of the state, there's way more to it than that. So I think economic development is number one that we need to have here in this district. Scott, Yale County, we have lots of ground and we have lots of employees that would be willing to go to work if we had the right businesses, operating companies come in. But economic development and taxes, that's what generates new roads, new buildings, new schools, all that stuff. So economic development is probably number one that we have to really look at for this district. That's what we need. If I can get involved down there in Little Rock and say, hey, we need factories, we need this. If we do that, then we'll bring jobs to this town.
Views on education and the Arkansas Learns Act.
What do you think about the Learns Act?
I'm a big fan because I'm a small government, parents first. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I always come to parents in the driver's seat and parents getting to choose, how their kids are educated. And I do like that the money can follow the student. There's also some really good things about raising teacher pay. I thought that really needed to happen. If you're going to do this whole public school thing, it's really hard to get and keep good teachers at $36,000 a year. You can't support a family.
Where you do a wonderful job homeschooling, but is there other people that really just take the money and run? So, how do we know that there's a standard, right?
Well, I think ultimately it comes back to the question, do I think the government knows better than the American citizen? If I'm the government, I'm like, listen, I think these Arkansans are too stupid or they're too selfish to educate their own kids. So I'm going to need to take that money and do it myself. And that's where, to me, yes, there are bad apples. There are bad situations. I was having a discussion with this school board member, and he was like, they need to stop judging us as schools on the worst of the school districts. They look at the worst cases of school districts and then they legislate. And I said, okay, but you need to stop making your arguments off of the worst of homeschool parents. Ultimately, though, that's kind of where it all comes back. We sacrifice our liberty for the sake of security, or the government knows best. Parents want the best for their kids. There are some bad parents out there, and there are some bad teachers out there. But ultimately, I think teachers are good and that they love their students and they want to work well in their classroom. But also, most of the parents love their kids and want the best for them. You have some homeschool parents that blow those standards out of the water. You got 16-year-olds going to MIT. A lot of homeschoolers take standardized tests every year, and they're like, these homeschoolers might not be keeping up. And I'm like, how many public kids are not keeping up? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a problem with the parent or the teacher. Maybe that child learns differently. Maybe they learn at a different pace. Maybe the education system as a whole might not be their best thing. I'm married to somebody who is probably dyslexic, just kind of got through school, but is an amazing carpenter and builder. Right. Great with his hands, has a skill that we need that's dying in this world. But school, forget it. And for him to read a book, kill him. Okay. Right. Just he's just not really gonna do it. But that doesn't mean he's not very valuable in our society and not needed. So, sometimes what's good about the LEARNS Act or school choice in general is you can look at this kid and you can say, what is this kid's spark? What is their natural God-given talent and gift? And let me just pour gasoline on that.
I think that vouchers are good in some aspects. And I think that they can be, when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, it's a tax break, at the end of the day. And so do I think that there are some homeschool people and things that need that voucher? Yes. I think that there are certain instances that it is okay for vouchers to be used. But also at the same time, I feel like that if they're going to be used, there needs to be a lot of stipulations and things that go along with the voucher. It doesn't just need to be, well, I decide to do this and this is what I'm going to do. Well, you need to stick with whatever you're going to decide to do until the next go around. Kind of how we've talked about people being homeschooled and then taking their kids back to school and that money just kind of being lost.
Right.
I feel like there needs to be some type of stipulation when it comes to situations like that. And I understand that it all sounds really good in the beginning. And some people just may have not have been just forward thinking when it came to hey, what are some of the issues that we may have with some of these things? But in my district, we don't have a lot of private schools. There's one private school, school of choice, I feel like, which is also good because I totally agree with people choosing where their kids go to school. Like my kids go to Dardanelle. That's where I went. We live far away from there, but we drive through every day. I want my kids to go to Dardanelle. But also, there are some schools that kind of stuff really hurts too. So I feel like in some points, vouchers and school of choice, it's helpful. But then at the end of the day, there's also a negative component that comes from it.
I think there's good and bad, both. I get both from superintendents, teachers, parents. There's a lot of dissent where in my district that we have teachers that they paid $50,000 and teachers that have been there that it didn't get that raise. Right. And what a lot of people think is everybody got $50,000 raise. Well, so those that were special education teachers that didn't meet the matrix of the money are still making what they were making. I don't know if they're making it in all our districts, but there's some districts in Arkansas that's happening. We're having to compete for our teachers, the good teachers, to teach from other states to keep them here in Arkansas. And I think that's one good thing about it. The one thing that I do hear from superintendents and then at school board members too is, okay, this voucher system. And that's a thing that a lot of people like because they can take their kids, go to a private school, whatever it may be. But what I hear from superintendents is that those vouchers, while they're in, some are good, they go to these schools that don't have to meet the same requirements as they do in our public schools. And so then you have another situation where I had a school board teacher say, well, I got all these homeschool kids that come to our play football and use our FFA, and we don't get any of the money. Well, that's not true. I found that out today. If that student comes for any of those school periods, they get that 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, how many ever classes they attend for that day, the school does get that money. So they're not using that for free all the time. I think we hadn't done right for 40 years. Look at our grade system. I mean, we had dropouts in the 8th and 9th grade. So something has to change, and it has to come along to help. And I think this is the right step. We just got to refine the process. And there's some worry about funding for the LEARNS Act also. Between the three counties, Scott, Yale, and Southern Sebastian, let's face it, there's a lot of blue-collar people there. If we had a school here that taught a trade, we would also have economic development. So, well, that factory's coming. Well, I know they make electricians and plumbers and welders there. There's going to be some employees there.
Some people that like the LEARNS Act. What do you think?
I've talked to superintendents at schools, and I've talked to superintendents that are for it and superintendents that are against it. I'm all for parental choice. I really do. I support the LEARNS Act because of that. So I support the school voucher system. I think parents should be able to choose where their kids go to school. And I think that more and more families are pulling their kids out of public schools, often because the concerns about what's being taught or what agendas are being pushed maybe onto their children. Making that move can be costly. I understand that. So I believe the funding that follows a child to public school should follow that child to whatever school or form of education that they believe in. The problem with that is then there's nothing to protect our public schools if that parent decides, well, hey, this didn't work out, I'm sending my kid back to public school. Then the public school, has to educate that kid the rest of the year with no funds from the government. I don't think that's right. I don't think this public school should be on the hook for that. But I also see the reasoning on why people are finding other forms of education, why parents are doing that. I think parents should have the choice to do what's right for their kids. They know their kids better than anybody else, and I think that's fine. Now, I don't believe that if a parent decides they want to homeschool their kids and they get that government funding to do so, they should be held to a standard just like a public school is. Like, hey, you're going to pass these tests, or you're not going to get your funding, and show us that you're actually educating your child properly the way you should. I can see both sides of it. I think it was a big, complex bill. I think there was too much put into that bill, but I understand a lot of times that's how some of these bills get passed. They put a little piece of the pie in there for everybody, so to speak, so they can get it pushed through. I don't agree with the complexity of the bill. I do like that our teachers got raises. I think they deserved raises. And I like the school voucher stuff. But along with that, there was some other stuff in there that some of our schools aren't happy about. And I can see that.
Discussion about Medicaid and healthcare.
There's going to be people on both sides, whether we like it or not. Like, there are people who really do need their Medicare, Medicaid, all of that. There are people that do truly need that. A lot of people in my district, because we are an older district, they do need that. And I was somebody I was raised by a single mom. Okay. I was on Our Kids A. When we didn't have to have that copay, my mom was pumped. And guess what? I went from not going to the doctor to, hey, I was going to the doctor regularly, going to the dentist regularly, and things like that. And so, do I think that in the cases of, the older generation who have worked and done what they're supposed to and get that advantage? Yes, like if you're over the age and you're getting that, you deserve to get that. Okay. If you've done what you're supposed to do in life, you've retired, you've done all these things. Now, are there going to be people who take advantage of the system? Yes. Do we need to figure out ways to figure that out? Yes, it's a really complex issue just like that, because guess what? There are going to be people who fall through the cracks. There are going to be people who get stuff taken away that shouldn't get stuff taken away. And these are the things, though, if we're going to, make this an issue and make this something that we're really going to need a hold of, we have to be very careful with how we do it, because we don't want people who deserve and have earned these things and need these things at the end of the day to get them taken away, because we're trying to weed out the bad people. Now, at the same time, I'm also somebody that if you're a working and able body, then you got to go to work. We have to figure something out for you. Now, look, that's another thing that happens in our district. Do we need more jobs and things like that? Yes. It's a complex issue, like you said, but it's going to be an all hands on deck type of approach when it comes to it, if they're going to do it the right way.
I think healthcare is very important to our district in a whole. You know, if we got to have healthy people so we can have jobs and have people contributing to society, I agree, and it may be a raw point with some people. If you're an able-bodied person, you need to be working. We're not out here trying to support you, and you're sitting at home drawing some kind of government subsidy, some kind of government check. If you're able-bodied, you need to go to work, and I'm glad we made stipulations that we do have to for them to get some of the subsidies and some of the things that they do have to work. Any system where you give away money, you're going to have abuse.
This is one of those crazy things, and you can't do it on a state level. But I wish that the federal government would give Medicare completely and Medicaid back to the states. I wish Arkansas had full control to solve Arkansas problems the way Arkansas needs to. This past week, I talked to 2 different hospital CEOs in our district, and it's really hard. I mean, even trying to get doctors that want to live rurally come out and live, in a small community and treat, and then the hospitals being able to afford them.
Thoughts on information, misinformation, and vaccines?
Well, I think there's so much distrust in our government with these COVID vaccines that people are really nervous about it. My kids are all vaccinated. Now, we didn't take the COVID shot. My kids didn't take. I think that's a choice that should be up to you as a parent as to whether you vaccinate your kids. There's this, we're getting these mumps and measles out of Mexico. Well, if your kids are vaccinated for them, you don't get them. And that we may be bringing them and infesting them here or open them up to that. Well, if your kids were vaccinated, they wouldn't have them. I'm for less government. Don't tell me what to do. I'm the guy. If you tell me to do this, I may go the other way and do something else. That may not be the best thing for me, but I think sometimes that's good because we stand up for what we believe in.
Obviously, you got to find experts in that field. You've got to pick people's brain that's been there and done that. As far as news channels go and stuff, it's no secret. I'm running as a Republican. I'm conservative, so I lean toward Fox News more than I do the others. But even with Fox News, you have to be very careful what you watch and look at nowadays. And now that AI is out there, it's such a scary thing. You can be watching something with your own eyes and not even know if it's true or not anymore. So you have to find experts in that field. And that's what I've been doing on all the stuff that's come across my desk, so to speak, in this district. I call Mary Bentley. Was calling Gary Stubblefield, Terry Rice, some other representatives and senators in there, and ask them what their perspective is on this. I think you just got to get a hold of people that's been there, done that, and that you can trust to give you an honest answer. You can do some of your own research, but you never know if what you're reading on Google is again, you never know what to believe anymore, and it's a sad thing. Well, I don't think that vaccines should be ever mandated, I guess, by the government. Medical decisions should always be made by the individual. I don't think there should be a forced blanket laws or anything, or like it should be a one-size-fit-all deal. Like, for instance, the COVID vaccine, I didn't take it, my wife didn't take it, our kids didn't take it, but my dad did take it. And I thought that he needed to due to, he was in bad health and his immune system and stuff. So, I feel like if somebody wants to take it, they should. If they don't want to, they shouldn't be forced to. That's why I believe in personal freedom on vaccines.
That's your truth. This is my truth. That's baloney. I'm like, no, there is a truth. There is the truth that we can find out.
But how would you wrestle with, greater good versus individualism?
I'm by no means a doctor or anything like that. But I think that people need to, get their information from a valid source. And I think the thing with the COVID vaccine and all that stuff, like I'm not like a big like flu shot guy and go get one I'm not like that. I feel like I never really got sick until I started having kids, honestly. I kind of say that, hey, you have your decisions and your rights and things like that do come into account. But the biggest thing is you need to be informed, and you don't need, and some people don't get your stuff off of Facebook all the time. Let's go to peer-reviewed sources and things, and let's look. Now, the COVID vaccine, I really feel like just kind of got to a bunch of people was that like it came out like this. You know what I mean? That I can see where people are like, well, like if it came out that fast, like why haven't we found a cure for cancer yet? People say like all of a sudden we can do some of this other stuff really fast, but these other things we can't do as fast. And so I do think that I don't think anybody's ever questioned the older vaccines, like what you're talking about, like the measles, the polio, and things like that. But at the same time, you need to know what you're putting in your body. And that goes with food. That goes with, your medication and all these other things too.
Here are a few reasons candidates said they wanted to run.
I am geared to be a problem solver. I want to hear about the problem, and I want to find the best way to fix it. That's how God wired me. It's how he, programmed me. Another thing is that there are 135 legislative members, and moms with kids at home, there's less than 5. It's probably, honestly, maybe less than 3 now. I'm not saying you should vote for me because I'm a woman. That's ridiculous. But I want to see more voices at the table and more voices in the discussion to talk about things that moms care about too, or to bring legislation forward. And so if I want to see that, and I'm not willing to put my name on a ballot and go for it, then I can't complain. I can't complain if there's not representation, if I'm not willing to step up and say, I'll do it.
Why did you run last time, and why are you running this time?
Well, I guess I never really been involved in politics. I've always voted, registered when I was 18. I thought it was real important. My grandpa always said there's people died so you could vote. And as that grew, my parents I'd be like, why can't we go to the Capitol and talk about such and such, or talk about this bill or that bill? And my dad was always like, son, we're here farming, we're here raising food for America, and that's our job. So what I came to realize is that there were people controlling things and setting bills and setting things that we didn't have any control over, and they knew nothing about how to raise food or what happened in the process of raising food. And I was just kind of put out with it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go run. This was in 22. Mary Bentley had just been moved out of our district, and we had Marcus Richmond coming in, which nobody in Neal County really knew that much about him. And it was like, if I'm going to run, it's my time. And so we got in the race. I don't know. It was probably 60 days before the primary vote, maybe 80. And I put 30,000 miles on a pickup truck trying to see everybody in 3 counties.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I can imagine.
What
did you learn by doing it?
I learned that politics is a different animal than anybody would ever think it would be.
Discussion about displaying the 10 Commandments in government buildings.
I'm deeply rooted in my faith. I believe that the 10 Commandments represent the foundation of how we all should live our lives. I think they should be displayed in every government building, whether that be a school, a courthouse, or whatever. But this country was founded on the belief of in God we trust. It's time we start living that way, I think. But now I do understand that the freedom of religion comes with the possibility of other people and other religions getting to display their beliefs as well. And legally, if we put the 10 Commandments out there, then legally they're able to do that too. They have the right to do that. But we shouldn't, I think, let the fear of what might happen prevent us from doing what I believe is right by putting the 10 Commandments out there. I believe the 10 Commandments is a moral compass for all of us to follow, whether you're a Christian or not. Yeah. The things that the 10 Commandments, for the most part, are about is just a moral compass of how we all should live our lives. So we shouldn't kill, we shouldn't steal, we shouldn't commit adultery, those type of things. Really, Christian or not Christian, that's a moral compass to how we should live. But I do understand the other side of it as well. You open the door for a lot of other things. I think that's why a lot of the Republicans voted against it.
I would have voted for it because, at the end of the day, I feel like those are the types of principles that our country was founded on. If you go back and you go and look at the original 13 constitutions and things like that. What are they referring to in those 13 constitutions? That is what we were founded on. If I feel like our government has actually been set up to be led by strong Christian people at the end of the day. If you take the God and everything out of it and you just list those as rules, that's some really good rules to go by at the end of the day. And I don't feel like we have a history of this. Like, you can go back and you can clearly see the history of some of these things and how our country was founded. If it was founded on something else, it would have been founded on something else.
I would have voted for it because the government doesn't grant us our rights. God grants us our rights. That's what our country's built on. And the same God that endowed us with those rights wrote the Ten Commandments. If you don't want to look at it as a spiritual document, that's fine. But I think it's a historic one. And it's a historic document that really was a part of the foundation of our country. And hanging it on a wall doesn't mean that you're ascribing to a certain religion or that you're forcing that upon people. It's a historic document in that case, and I don't have any problems displaying it in school.
Very difficult to vote against the Ten Commandments, right? Do you have a particular view on that?
Well, I'm going to put it to you this way. I was raised a Baptist church, and I know what the Ten Commandments are. But when you place them in a state-funded facility, you open yourself up to, as bad as I don't want to say it, Satan worshipers, other religions, that they could do the same thing. And that's been the talk down there at the Little Rock, is we're opening ourselves up to some other things. Do I want my kid to see 10 commandments every day? You damn right I do. But we have to be really careful with that when we're putting that in, installing that, as we leave ourselves open for lawsuits and other things. If you want to get down to it, it's the same principle. Hey, you got the 10 Commandments. We want our Book of Mormon. We want our Book of Satan, or whatever it may be. That's what I'm throwing out there. I'm saying you open yourself up to that, and then you have to either deal with it through legislative process, lawsuits, or whatever it may be. That's a bridge that has to be crossed when it comes.
And here are a few final thoughts from the candidates.
What gets you mad? What gets you social media, the news?
Wasteful government spending. Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples. There's one right here in Darnell.
God.
We have a school, our Darnell school, for my daughter attends. We worked really hard to get FFA started back there, and I'm very proud of that. I was one of the ones that went to the school board and talked to people and got things going, and we got it back in our schools because I wanted my daughter to be able to experience that, because I think it's a very good program. So we built a barn. I know it's called a show barn, work barn, whatever it is. I was astounded when I found out what that barn cost. I'm going to say it's maybe 60 by 50 building, concrete block, metal roof. That building cost $774,000. I could have built it for less than $100,000. My question was, why did we spend $774,000 on this building there's not even a classroom in? I mean, we have to do something about that. We need to spend that other $500,000 on educating our kids, not building buildings.
Right.
And there's got to be a happy medium in there somewhere that we can fix.
So what gets you mad?
In government, the thing that makes me really mad, gets my blood boiling, is this idea that there's this elite group of people who are privy to information and they know more than you, and they are the ones that need to be in the know and you don't. I really can't stand when government officials or people in power treat the American people like they're idiots. Like they can't make their own decisions. They're not smart enough to decide what's best for their family. Yeah, that gets me mad really fast.
Can you give me an example?
Even with homeschooling, you run into that a lot. There's a lot of people that don't feel like you as a parent should get to decide the best way to school your child.
Are you someone who would say less government is better, or government should be more involved?
I'm a less government guy. I mean, and that's supposed to be, the Republican values, small government principles, fiscal responsibility, all of those type of things. Like, I believe in the principles and what we need to do. Like, I don't feel like, the local level is where a bunch of these things like they need to have more control. I don't feel like that we're voted in to tell everybody what they're supposed to be doing. Like we're supposed to be working for everybody.
Our senior citizen centers are not fully funded. Scott County had lost $283,000 of their funding, Scott and Southern Sebastian, from a federal government grant that they did not get this time. I know Danville and Dardanelle are closed on Mondays, and that's, we're all getting older. So senior citizens are really something that's set with me. Rural fire departments. We're really struggling with rural fire departments and the volunteers. We're not doing really anything for those guys right now. For your insurance rates to be lower, we need rural firefighters. And I want to look at some kind of stipend maybe, or a tax break for those guys, because they're doing it out of their own pickups. A lot of them are paying for their own turnout gear. So there's several issues that I don't have one main agenda. I'm not going down there to work on one civil issue or one thing. I think that there's a lot of work to be done.
Like I get like a high, I guess I would say, for, the idea of helping create jobs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a passion of mine. Where Plainview's at. We're in a town of 600 people, and we've had opportunities, and people that's asked why don't we move to Russellville, closer to the interstate, and we work all across the state. So I send 7 or 8 crews out a day. Most of the time we're going to Northwest Arkansas or wherever. And that does make sense logistically to move closer to the interstate, and probably a better employee pool, honestly, more people and stuff. But there's just something to me about creating jobs in a rural community. Honestly, that's why our small towns are drying up, is because people are moving out of them for work. So if I can create jobs right here in a town of 600, that's special to me.